Hello, welcome to ReginaldESQ. I'm very sad. Wargaming took our T-18s away. But maybe it's going to be good. Maybe they've replaced it with something really good. The American Tier 2 tank destroyer, the T3 HMC. Is it any good? Could it even possibly be better than the T-18? No! It's pathetic! Ah! Yes, good people of the internet, it's pretty terrible. It basically has the same guns that the T-18 had, but it has absolutely no armour whatsoever. And it's a dog. It's amazing what a difference the armour makes to the tank, especially when you consider when they nerfed the T-18, it became more difficult. You then take the armour away, and it's completely useless as a tank. Also, it has less hit points than the T-18 had, and considering it has no armour. So the T-18 had 120 hit points, I believe. They originally had 125, and then they nerfed it to 120. Now this only has 110 hit points, which is the least of any Tier 2 tank destroyer. The most is the Russian AT-1 that has 125. Weight-wise, it weighs in at 9.2 tonne, or 9 to 10 tonne, which is actually pretty heavy. The only heavier one is that, once again, the Russian AT-1. The others are a bit lighter, so ramming is definitely an option in this because it's very hard to hit anyone and do damage to them. And everyone can see you because the camouflage is terrible, so ramming is kind of viable in this tank destroyer because it is pretty quick. It does have a top speed of 72 kilometers an hour, which makes it by far the fastest tank destroyer in class. In fact, it's almost as fast as some of the light tanks. However, maneuverability is awful. The track traverse is 34, which, look, is about average. The best is the Universal Carrier, the 2-pounder, has a 40 track traverse, and the worst is the French Renault FTAC. That only has 30 degrees of track traverse, and even the old T-18 only was nerfed down to 22. So the track traverse is kind of okay, but when you can do 72 kilometers an hour, that track traverse is awful, and you'll find that you can't maneuver at all. It's great when you need to get to a position quickly and get into a good spot quick. It's good for that, but other than that, it's pretty useless. The view range on this is 270 meters, which is not very good. The AT-1 is worse, only has 250, but all the others have 300, so 270 isn't great. When you consider how high this tank is, the only tank that's higher, in fact, is the Renault FTAC, which has 300. So some of the other tank destroyers are quite a bit lower, but have better view range, which makes no sense. The signal range of 265 meters is also very poor and is the worst in class. So not only do you have a short view range, but your radio range is very poor, so scouts can't send the information back to you about where the enemy tanks are. So it's kind of, you'll find yourself being blind fairly often. The camouflage rating is pretty poor. It's not the worst. The worst is the Renault FTAC, because that's a very high tank as well. But it's much worse than all the other tank destroyers, and it's pretty bad. Obviously, this totally redundant turret sitting on top is pretty bad. Yeah. Okay, so the gun traverse, it has 25 degrees, so the gun moves 25 degrees across, which is actually not too bad for a low tier TD. The best is the Universal Gun Carrier 2-pounder. That has 44 degrees of gun traverse, which is really good. The worst is the Renault FTAC, which only has 12 degrees. That's a pretty bad tank, that one. So 25 is not too bad. No problems there. Gun depression is 7 degrees, which sounds pretty good, but in practice I found it to be, it doesn't feel like 7 degrees to me. It feels more like about 5. I'm not sure why. It just felt that way to me. It has 20 degrees of elevation, which is pretty good. The worst in class is the Universal Gun Carrier with 5 degrees of gun depression. And the best in class is the Renault FTAC with 15 degrees of gun depression. The other couple have about 8 degrees. So, speaking of gun depression, let's talk about the placement of the gun. So the gun is obviously off to the side, and it's quite low on the tank when you consider it's got this turret here. So if you're in a position where you can see the enemy, which means they can just see your gun, you have all of this, including this extra turret on top of you, so they've got all that to shoot at, even though your gun's only just popping up. So this tank really can't hide and shoot. You can, for example, try and cover the left-hand side of your tank here behind a rock or building and just present the gun side. But you'll see this big open door here. There's absolutely no armor there. It's 0 armor. So it's still not that great. And you're pretty much the same height as a normal tank destroyer when you do that anyway. And width. This is a very wide tank destroyer. It's much wider than most of the other tank destroyers. And in fact, it's much wider than most of the other tier 2 tanks. So very high, very wide, big target, no armor. And the howitzer is very slow reloading. So it's kind of it's a sitting duck, really, this tank. Yeah, I mean, the howitzer hits well if you can hit with it. So at the moment I have the 2-pounder fitted. The 2-pounder has a 24 rate of fire, which is very good. 64 mils of penetration, which is very good at tier 2. And 121 with premium ammunition, which is incredible. 45 damage is about average for a tier 2 tank. 0.38 accuracy, about average for tier 2. 1.7 aiming time is very good for tier 2. So this gun is actually quite a good gun. I have no problems with this gun at all, except that it's on this tank. You could obviously opt for the howitzer gun, which you can see here. And that gun is pretty much the same as it was on the T18. So 8.57 rate of fire, 38 mils of penetration with 175 damage, which is a lot for a tier 2. 91 with premium and 110 damage, but you really just use the HE. 0.53 accuracy is awful, but it always was, and 3-second aiming time is really, really bad, and I think that's actually worse than it used to be on the T18 from recollection. It was in the old days 2.3 seconds on the T18, and I think when they nerfed the T18 they knocked it back a bit, but now it's 3 seconds, and it really is a killer on this tank. Sitting out with a tank that has poor camouflage, basically in the open because you don't have a turret, and waiting 3 seconds for your howitzer shell to aim and then fire it and wait the 2 seconds for it to land, it's a disaster. Really is a disaster in this tank. And it's very difficult to use. Pretty much, when I said it has the second worst camouflage, if you've got the howitzer fitted, when you fire the gun, you have the worst camouflage. Your camouflage, because of this gun is a big gun for its tier, it lowers your camouflage lower than the other tanks do. So as soon as you fire your gun, you're basically spotted. And this tank has a very poor reverse speed. It only does 7 kilometers an hour in reverse, which is the slowest of any of the tanks in reverse. So backing back to get behind a rock or something, again, it's tragically slow, and you almost always get hit trying to do it. So yeah, I'm not giving it a big rap, am I? I have my old T18 crew. The commander has recon, is working on camouflage, and the this guy here has camouflage, is working on controlled impact, because I used to ram people with the T18, but yeah. And fitted, I have a gun laying drive fitted to try and speed up that tragically slow aiming time. I have binoculars and a camouflage net fitted. Small repair kit, large repair kit, large first aid kit fitted. Let's get into Tank Inspector, have a quick look, and then get into some gameplay. So the T3 HMC in Tank Inspector, this is going to be quick. So the red section you can see here are 16mm thick. Tier 1 tanks can rip you to pieces. On the side here it's 13mm. This section here where the gun is, those open doors are 0. The gun itself is basically 0. The upper plate here is 6mm. Entire side of the tank here is 13, except for the turret is 16. Rear of the tank is 6mm. Top deck is 6mm. Effectively has 0 armor. Now, having no armor means that you are vulnerable not only to tier 3 tanks and tier 2 tanks, but even tier 1 tanks can rip you to pieces. But what about when you come across a tier 3 tank like a Panzer 1C? Well, I've taken up this position here. I know the Panzer 1C is coming. Just watch how quickly this Panzer 1C rips me to pieces. And this is one of the main things with this tank. Watch this. Here comes Panzer 1C. I aim, fire, and I'm dead. So I did get one shot into him, but basically I think one of his rounds didn't penetrate. All the rest did.
Time to roll out.
The map is Ruinberg. It's a tier 3 game. About half the tanks on your team are tier 3s. So I'm running into cover. But in this tank you have to go into cover anyway because you have, like I said, no armour. And when you have no armour, no turret, and terrible manoeuvrability, it's a deadly combination. It basically means you have no choice but to hide in bushes. Combine that with not very good camouflage, and when you fire your howitzer gun, your camouflage is terrible. It's a tough tank to play. You can see here the gun depression isn't good. And like I said, feels more like 5 degrees to me than the stated 7 degrees. Now, yeah, tough tank to play this one. Now, it's tier 3 game, so I'm hanging back. I have got the howitzer gun fitted. In the next game I've got for you, I have the 2-pounder fitted, so you can have a look at the difference. But there you can see the gun depression. It's pretty bad. I was trying to get further back, so there wasn't so much of my tank above the ridge, but I just can't do it. So I'm having to stay with basically almost the whole of my tank exposed. So there's a board in front of me, but I'm hoping my shell will go over it, and it does. And we actually hit that guy and do 176 damage to that tier 2 Japanese tank. I would think it was the tier 2 one, wasn't it? Anyway, Japanese tanks of course have terrible armor, so the HE shell did really good work on it. The Aigo Chiro. Now what was that Aigo Chiro? Was that? It's, yeah, tier 2. So tier 2 Japanese tank. So it's in a similar scenario to ourselves in that it has no armor whatsoever. Or very little armour, so our HE 38mm probably fully penetrated it, doing 176, which is average 175 damage on howitzer gun, so yeah. And that's really what you're relying on, is staying well back and fluking some shots, because the gun isn't very accurate and of course has a slow reload, so really getting close to other tanks with this gun is pretty much a death sentence. Especially in a tier 3 game. I might speed this up a little bit here because I'm not shooting anything. I'll slow back down because we have got line of sight now. So Stuart there, and we actually get a hit in for 20 points of damage. Might have hit his mantle or something. Another shot, and that misses, unfortunately. I can't see anymore, so I'm just going to blind fire a couple of times. You never know. He's gone. Now, what have we got here? There he is again. Someone else has spotted him. Now, because it's such a slow aiming time, I actually moved my gun in front of his tank to try and pre-aim and then shoot as he drove through my aimed gun, but I still couldn't do it. Having a 3-second aiming time on a gun that is this inaccurate in a tank that has no armor is criminal, in my opinion. That's, I think the only reason you might keep this tank is in case they buff it later on, because it's, as it is, it's pretty terrible. I think that well, I don't know. I mean, really, they'd have to increase or decrease the aiming time on this gun a lot for it to be really usable. So we're winning by a mile. They've only got 2 tanks left, so I decided, if I'm going to have any further part of the game, I better charge forward. I wasn't really paying attention, didn't realise that that the game was almost over. Now they do have a T3 HMC on their team as well, and I assume he's going to be doing what I was doing and be in the bushes right on the other side of the map back here behind the building, so basically opposing position to me. So knowing that, I'm using these buildings here for cover, and I'm staying up on this side of the map, which is a higher ridge, and it's harder for people to shoot from there. See if we can get this Stuart and finally do something to it. 22, not much damage with the howitzer. Come on, he's shooting back at me now. Someone else is shooting him as well. He gets 50 points into us. Finally, we do a decent shot on him, doing 87 damage. I back up a little bit behind this building because I'm thinking the other T3 is probably aiming at me, and if he's got the howitzer gun, as long as I keep moving, he's got pretty much no chance of hitting me. He has now been spotted. There he is. Artillery is targeting him. Can I get a shot into him? My gun, for some reason, isn't aiming. You can see that's just not aiming. I fired anyway, and we hit. and now the reticle is moving in. Occasionally it happens to me where the reticle does not aim for some reason. But anyway, we did get a hit on him at least. So that was a Class 3 game in the tank. I am not playing any more games in this thing because it's just, I didn't like it, so I didn't bother trying to get master or anything. I really did not like driving this tank. Next screen, and we finished, not for a Tier 3 game, we finished all right on XP, and we did good damage considering we only have 110 hit points. We did, 3 times our tank's hit points in damage. So you can see with the house, you don't have to hit very much to do reasonable damage, but it is difficult to hit with. And I had some much worse games than this one, trust me. Shots fired 10, we hit with 5 of them, and 359 damage, most of it for some long range shooting. We damaged 3, destroying 1, tiny bit of assistance damage, and income, our profit wise, very good profit. Very, very good profit, ammo's cheap. Was it 323 XP was enough for Class 3 in the tank. Tank hasn't been around very long, and I don't know whether the stats are probably mixed up with the T18. So it's you're probably going up against T18 who's trying to get master in this tank for the first week or so. Then it should calm down. So this time we're on Mittengard, and it's a Tier 2 game. This is a terrible map for this tank, or for any tank that doesn't have armor. There are no bushes. There's nowhere to hide. Himmelsdorf is similarly bad for this tank, and particularly because you can't just pop over something and shoot over it, because the tank is incredibly, it's much higher than the height of the gun. So, if you move in a position where you can shoot, like here, I'm trying to get a sheltered position where just my gun's showing while my top of my turret's showing as well. As you can see there, that is a HM3, a T3 HMC that we are shooting at. And we managed to decimate him simply because we got into position before he did. And that is the thing. If someone is in position and you're trying to get in position to shoot them, you'll be killed before you can even get into position. Because the tank maneuvers so slowly, and because there's so much of the tank sticking up above everything before you even get into position, that you'll be killed before you get there, as was demonstrated with the other guy. Now this gun though, the 2-pounder, is a very good gun, has good penetration, does 45, which is alright for Tier 2, has good rate of fire and all that. Now I can tell that guy is aiming at my turret, that's why I moved back in. He was moving, suddenly went stationary, and I thought, he's aiming at my turret. Because you would think he couldn't see my turret, but I was thinking, no, he can see my turret. And that's why now I'm backing away. That guy is not silly. There are a lot of silly people in Tier 2, but he's not one of them. And I figure, nah, I've got to go the other side. He's just going to eventually pick me up and kill me. Fortunately, someone else on my team actually just killed him, I think. So, someone who has a turret, I think. So, I'm trying to come around here. It is Tier 2, so hopefully I'll catch some people off guard. That guy missed me, and fortunately we got a shot into him. And here is another T3 HMC. He is doing the right thing, trying to cover up his tank and just shoot me, but my turret is covered from him as well. And he wasn't, for some reason, wasn't able to return fire, or he just didn't know what he was doing. And we managed to kill him before he could kill us. But you can imagine, if in this game, so if we've been against people who don't really know what they're doing. Here, I'm going to aim at this tank. I would have just shot him there, but unfortunately my teammate stops in front of my line of fire. Happens a lot, Tier 2. You can't expect anything better than that, Tier 2. So we've got a shot here, we know. We should be able to maneuver into a position here to get a shot, and teammate pulls in front of me. Like I say, Tier 2. That's life at Tier 2. You can't expect people to do much better than that. And this guy gets a shot into us. I back away, so he has to come around. I fire and bounce off him, unfortunately. And my next shot, which I just fire, looking back, and we get that one into him, which gets the kill. One more guy. Can we get a shot into him as he goes past? I think I bounced off him. I don't know what happened there. I think I actually bounced off him. There is one more tank remaining on him, Team Panzer 2. Panzer 2 could rip me to pieces with his multi-fire cannon if that's what he's got fitted. But hey, it's the end of the game, I don't care. Let's just see if we can get a shot in. Turn around, aim, hopefully his gun's reloading. We got a shot into him, which I was really rapt about, just to do a bit more damage was good. We've got 2 tanks left. I can tell you now that our other 2 tanks basically end up suiciding on him like this, which is what I did too. And the Panzer Jag, I don't blame him for just driving up and shooting at the guy, because you know, any other way, he's just going to die anyway. Or his only choice was really drive up and hopefully get one shot into the Panzer II before the Panzer II could kill him. Anyway, we lost. So, another Tier 3 game in the tank. Next screen. We finished second on XP and second on damage as well. We fired 14 shots, 10 of them hit. All of the 10 that penetrated. It is a very good gun. In fact, both the guns are okay. The aiming time on howitzer is far too long, but other than that, it's a good gun. This is a very, very good gun. It's just on a terrible tank. 375 damage is good, but we were lucky. Hits received 6. One somehow didn't penetrate. We blocked 40 damage somehow. I don't know what happened. Must have been a ricochet. We damaged 6, destroying 4. As you can see, once again, very, very profitable tank, and 303 XP is enough for a Tier 3. A Class 3 in the tank. I think anybody who had the T18 will be pretty much disappointed or even disgusted that this is the replacement for it. I think they would have even been better off just giving us the T18 as the Tier 3 SPG. At least it would have been a bit different. Replacing it with this is pretty terrible. And I don't know if you had paid gold for camouflage on your T18, which I'm sure a lot of people would have because it was a kind of a keeper tank. I wonder whether they refunded the gold or whether your T3 HMC now has gold paid for camouflage, which would be disappointing. So anyway, yeah, that's it, folks. Thank you for watching my review of the T3 HMC. Hope you liked it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more reviews, please subscribe to ReginaldESQ. Have fun.